I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Candace Owens and her reaction that she had when Bibi Netanyahu just said some kind words about Charlie Kirk and how he had wrote him a letter. And so she became a raving lunatic about it and was, saying, oh, he didn't represent the letter right, which I didn't believe her claims. And so other people who had seen the letter did report on it earlier, which I hadn't seen the pushback, I guess, about other people have seen the letter saying that, talking about the actual contents of it, but she was like, oh, release the whole thing. So the whole letter was released last night, and I did read the whole thing. I contemplated reading the whole thing with you guys, but I think I'll just kind of touch on the highlights of it, but you guys can read it for yourself. New York Post wrote it about it. You can find it all over X. People are retweeting it and stuff, but shocker, Charlie Kirk did not denounce Israel or anything like that. He clearly showed his love about Israel. And there was just no reason for her to just be a raving lunatic toward Bibi Netanyahu when I think he was just really trying to pay respect to Charlie after he died, unlike what she has done. And there's a lot of people talking about the different things that she's been saying and doing since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and people are like, she's lost her mind. I've been talking about Candace Owens for a while, so I'm glad people are jumping on the Candace Owens is problematic train. But I got some comments from TikTok when the last time I mentioned her, and someone was asking like, well, why are you talking about Candace? You're all on the same side. And I think that, and this isn't a new thing that I've thought, but I think this sort of things that she pushes and she talks about has been dangerous for a while. And she pushes a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of things that aren't true, and also engages in victim culture, similar to how the left does. So I can touch on that, talk about it, but I want to talk about this letter. Someone said Candace just cannot stop making a fool of herself. Yeah, you guys are probably going to see me squint a lot today. I set up my internally. I've been having some issues with my app that I use when I've been trying to switch and play things from X and share my screen and stuff. So I was hoping today I could just kind of do two screens because that's how they recommend. So my software stuff is on this screen to the side of me, and everything else I'm running is coming off the laptop. So I do need glasses. I just don't have any. So your comments look very far away to me. Look very far away. So I see you guys typing. I also want to touch on the Tucker speech. I haven't really talked about it, just a little bit. That he said at the memorial and what he said afterwards. And Megyn Kelly, she's getting blasted because people are pressing her like, hey, Tucker and Candace, they're problematic. Like, are you going to criticize them? And she said something along the lines or pretty much that, we need to focus on the left. And people are like, wait a second, the left not dealing with the fringe left is how they became the main left. And now you got Zoran Mamdani and you had Kamala Harris, who had all these radical ideas about trans stuff and et cetera, et cetera. If you don't one day, the moderate Democrats, the blue collar people who considered themselves to be normal just woke up and their party had completely left them. And we do not want the right to be gone as well. So lots of things to talk about today. Before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on our website, articles, reviews, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all the good stuff. So you guys can support it very much. Appreciate you guys. I have good news. On my website, not blackteennews.com, but my book website, ninjadustpublishing.com. So I'll just go ahead and put that on the screen. I do have a pre-order for Bigger now available. And so there's gonna be hardcover, which got it over here. I got like a stack of books to the side of me. So we got the hardcover here. There's also, a paperback. The paperback's $15, the hardback is $25. If you buy 2 paperbacks of any of my paperbacks, you can get 2 for $25. So every time, so they're $15, and every time you bundle, it'll take it down. Instead of it being $30, it'll be $25. And if you keep there's no limit on it, so as many as you guys want to get. I usually, that's for stuff that you get off the site. All my other books, because I have this Bigger will be 19. They're all available on Amazon except for Bigger right now. And there's no bundles or whatever on that, and it's actually like more expensive on Amazon. But you guys can get the stuff on Amazon. I haven't put all my other books for delivery and stuff on my website yet. I still am kind of working through that and the inventory that I have on hand and stuff. So if you want like another book or something, you guys can go to Amazon right now for those other ones. But I recommend that you go ahead and pre-order the Bigger stuff now. If you want to attend the party for Bigger, I recommend that you guys definitely pre-order your book so you make sure you have it on the day. That's not going to be shipped to you. That's going to be for pickup, available that day. It's going to be in Auburn Hills. So if you're in Michigan, in the Auburn Hills area, or maybe you just want to drive to that area, it's in the southeast area, Oakland County. So, there'll be more information released on that day, and more information that once you like RSVP will be sent to you and stuff too. But we'll sign it. We'll have some refreshments. We'll have some like maybe some coloring stuff for kids with the characters. We'll have a reading, and I'll try to maybe figure out some other cool little things to do. But we'll have a grand old time, and so I'm excited about it. To finally have that up, because I was took me a while to kind of figure the stuff out, but I got it. Which place do you prefer we order books from? I would prefer if you did it off of my website. Just frankly, because it's a I don't have to split with Amazon, I guess. But I'm still uploading all my other books to the site, which I guess I can have done tonight. And I don't know if I have them all in stock. So if I just a little behind the scenes stuff, if I'll buy my author copies like from Amazon, because it's like print on demand, and so they'll have to make it and then send it to me, and I have like an at cost that I pay, and I pay to have it shipped to me, obviously. And then we go from there. So if it's out of stock, I can't turn around and ship it to you in like 10 days. So I just need to I guess get that inventory and stuff together. Other stuff that people want to pre-order with if you want to pre-order a book with Bigger, I will go ahead and probably send that out when I send out Bigger. I suppose if that's what people want. But if people just want to go to the site and buy like, I don't know, The Dark Mermaid or something, I want you to be able to do that. So it would be, I've seen a lot of authors transition like away from Amazon, like their stuff will be still on Amazon, but trying to push people to the actual site so they can keep more of their profits and stuff. Now, if you do not live in the US though, I think the shipping, you guys will have to let me know, but because shipping, oh my gosh, why is shipping so expensive? Shipping's really expensive. And I just don't know if you want a book from Canada you want to pay like $20 in shipping, and it might be more than that. Like there's international flat rates, and it can be high, like really costly to send it to like Australia and stuff. Like I know people watch me from all over because people all over the world are very interested in United States politics. So if there's a demand that people want a signed book that bad and they want to pay those high costs, you guys can just let me know and I can make that an option. Otherwise, it will be available on Amazon, and bigger is going to be available wide. So it's going to be available on Barnes and Noble and I guess Target and just basically anywhere you might buy books. It should be also available for pre-order on those sites too. Eventually pre-order on Amazon too. But I don't think you should start seeing that until I don't think they'll start populating that data until the 1st of October. So I will check and see if it's available by the 1st of October for those pre-sale dates. And how that will work out is they will ship it once it's, I guess, live. Or maybe they'll ship it before. No, I think they probably ship it when it's live to you if you pre-order it. So, yeah. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. So I'm excited about it. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to let you guys know because I said on Monday that it would be up, and now today I wanted to make sure that I told you guys that it was up. But yeah, very, very excited about it. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about this Candace Owens stuff and the Charlie Kirk letter. So Bibi Netanyahu, after Charlie Kirk had passed, had some kind words to say about Charlie Kirk, and seeing that he's the prime minister of Israel, he went ahead and he talked about Charlie's relationship to Israel and how he's a friend to him and how he's a friend to Israel. You know, people could say, oh, he was taking advantage. He's just doing propaganda. It seems very like obvious to me that you would talk about those sorts of things. He's prime minister of Israel. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Israel, friend to Bibi's been to Israel, all that stuff. So if the prime minister of a country is going to come on Fox News and talk about the passing of someone who was assassinated, who's a political figure. I mean, he's a civilian, wasn't elected in politics, but he's obviously a political figure. It just doesn't seem very strange to me or out of pocket, out of the ordinary, that Bibi would talk about Charlie Kirk in that sort of way. And so I can go ahead and I guess just kind of play for you guys when he went on Fox. But Candace really got upset about the sort of things that Bibi was saying. And I thought she was so out of pocket for the way that she reacted, if you haven't seen it. So give me 1 second. Hopefully I will not have any hiccups like I've had on my end past couple days. Oh, that looks small because of the screen. Okay. All right.
Charlie Kirk, of course, for all of us who know him, who knew him.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because they're like kind of gearing it up.
Which bind Israel and America. And Charlie's fearless commitment to truth and freedom cost him his life. Violence may have taken him, but it cannot silence his legacy. May his memory be a blessing. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, in focus now. Prime Minister, you have your own memories of Charlie Kirk. Please share them.
Okay, before he gets into it, I want to reiterate, just I think this is an honor to have, again, the prime minister of a country that he very much, fought for, like is politically for, I guess, and advocated for. Didn't agree with everything that they did, which, by the way, Ben Shapiro doesn't agree with everything Israel does. Like, he has a speech about like things Israel does wrong and needs to like change and stuff. So everybody's not like just surrendering their free will and common sense to the Israeli government. Whatever they do just goes, but when elected officials, like the president, well, he was the president at the time, but Donald Trump sent a letter of condolences for my mom's funeral. And at the time, my sister worked for his campaign. So that was special to the family, especially to my dad, who is a big Trumper, So it meant a lot to him. And then there were other elected officials who weren't even like local, but we just knew them in different circles, where my sister knew them in different circles. And they sent letters, to the family. Those were special letters that we got to read, at the funeral. It was very nice. And I would consider that an honor. I think a foreign leader speaking very highly of you at all on TV, I think it's pretty neat. So Candace flipping out about it, even just we'll just watch it. It's just so weird that she flipped out about it.
Well, Harris, before I do that, I have to say that we're just heartbroken. Myself, my wife, my family, my son actually, on his 2019 visit to Israel, had lunch with him and his wife, Erica. We're shattered first as human beings because a great human being has been taken from us. Was an extraordinary friend. He said, he wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year. He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate. He certainly didn't invite the violence, the horrible violence that tried to silence him. And, this is a worldwide problem. The people on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and their union with the ultra progressives, they often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies, whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or, they try to kill me here too. But they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, the young people in both our countries look to him, and I don't know what is being said with regard to that right now in Israel, but I am curious. I mean, he is a beacon for so many in his young generation. Your last quick thought.
Look, sometimes people can be irreplaceable. Charlie was 31 years old. He was a great hero of our common roots and common culture. My older brother, was 30 years old when he died trying to successfully rescuing Israeli hostages that were held by German and Arab terrorists in Entebbe, Uganda. And I thought about my brother all my life, and I think of Charlie. I'll be thinking of Charlie all my life. They're gone, and maybe they're once in a generation, but generations then live by their legacy.
Amen to that. Prime Minister Netanyahu, grateful for your.
So I didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said, and Candace certainly flipped out about it. Again, the letter was released, and what Bibi said was true. And as far as Charlie being a defender of Israel, that is true. It too. You can just go look at content after content after content of Charlie. Again, not agreeing with everything that the government has done, but defending their right to defend themselves, debunking the lies that it's a genocide that's going on in Gaza, which by the letter is mostly him giving suggestions to Bibi about how they can run their comms. and rebuking them because it's a friendly rebuke, like in love, because they're not properly conveying I guess the necessity of the things that they're doing, debunking all these lies that are going around. And people like Charlie and whoever shouldn't have to go and dig to debunk everything in real time. And they don't have the time to do that. They should have people doing that themselves. They should be, taking the freed hostages around. He suggested them doing tours to tell their stories, to talk about how they suffered, and even how the civilians also played a role in the cruelty that was done to them. Like it was a long list. It was, I think, 7 pages in total about what they can do for their PR. And he's like, I don't even know if you guys have a press secretary. You guys need to be on TikTok. You need to be debunking all this stuff. And you guys, it can't just be us talking about it. Like, you need Israelis to talk about this stuff. Do man on the street videos about why people, love being in Israel and what's great about the country. So that's what the letter was about. And what BB read is true, at least from the letter. And other people have confirmed that the letter was true and knew about the letter at the time. But Candace was upset about it. And when she went off about it, it was pretty nuts to me. It was pretty nuts to me. So let me go ahead and she said BB lied about the contents of the letter Charlie wrote to him in May. It was a lie by severe omission, and it isn't sitting right with me. He held the letter in his hand and propagandized it. He should publish the entire thing, which it's a 7-page letter. Him talking about Charlie's love for Israel, which is just verifiable. It's a fact. And that he wrote that it has been his pleasure to defend Israel. Why would you be upset? Why would you be upset about that? Charlie did express frustration at one point, which this isn't a secret. Other people from Turning Point have talked about this, and you can get this vibe from that interview he had with not Candace, Megyn Kelly, about how if he doesn't defend Israel enough, that people attack him and call him an anti-Semite. That word is being used too much. I've seen a lot of Jewish content creators. I don't know if they consider themselves content creators, but they are Jewish and they are on X or whatever, retweeting his letter saying, I agree with every word that Charlie has said. And A.G. Hamilton, one person that I follow, before this letter was released, he just wrote a post after the memorial and talked about how critics, defenders of Israel, need to really kind of chill out, like about how often they will just throw that accusation at people. It just frustrates people, and they'll come after people who are their friends, who are their allies, and it makes other observers annoyed, like, oh, here they go again. Ben Shapiro was asked about Candace Owens the other day and asked if she was an anti-Semite, and he said, I don't think that term is useful. I don't think that term is useful. So he doesn't want to use that term anymore. I think it would be kind of safe if you're going to throw it at somebody, you could probably throw it around at her, but I don't know how much is from hate or just grifting or whatever with Candace, or I don't know. People think that she's lost her mind. I don't know. It kind of seems a little too calculated to me, but let's watch some of her response.
Oh, there definitely is a little bit more to the story. First and foremost, that letter he is holding up, he is severely misrepresenting. Those sentences are real, but I am calling upon Bibi Netanyahu, the dear friend to Charlie Kirk, to publish the letter's entire contents. Like, don't start with just 2 sentences. Publish the entire thing. You're holding it. I'm saying you're severely misrepresenting the contents, that in May, Charlie was concerned about Israel and their influence on American politics and how they were pushing things that he felt were in conflict with his beliefs, free speech here in America. Bibi's holding it up like Charlie just in May said, hey, you know what? I just want to write a love letter to Israel. That's how it was presented. Would you guys agree? That's not how it happened. Let's stop saying how Charlie felt. And instead, if you're going to hold up the letter, release it in its entirety. Okay. And lies by severe omission, I'd like to be very clear, are lies. And does anybody want to jump in and say, no, yeah, the letter Charlie wrote him in May was just like a glowing, he just was overcome with passion and said, I love Israel. You guys are amazing. You're beautiful. We're going to win this thing and you're perfect and doing nothing wrong. Love you, Bibi. Comey very quickly told us that Charlie was penning love letters to him in May. I just find that weird that no one wants to address the substance of the claims here, whether or not maybe Bill himself has an opinion on whether Bibi lied by severe omission.
She's talking about Bill Ackman right here. On top of like her flipping out about Bibi, she also was talking about, started spreading rumors about what happened in the Hamptons. There's an event that Charlie put on, that Bill Ackman helped to put on, where they had these influencers come out. And to me, if you're familiar with Demon Slayer, to me it sounded like Charlie Kirk wanted to engage in like Hashira training. Demon Slayer is an anime. Their Infinity Castle movie is just killing it. Like, it only cost like 20 million to make, and I think it, from reports that I've seen, it's like was more than $500 million. It's just crazy numbers. But anyway, there's this group of people who fight demons, and Hashira is just basically the elite. And there was an arc before the Infinity Castle where they had like just different people who weren't Hashira go through different training that was led by the Hashira. So what actually happened is Charlie Kirk invited influencers to debate different issues and to not lead like emotionally. Like he would ask like provoking kind of questions to see how they would respond. Like he said, what if I tweeted out like Bibi Netanyahu has to resign? And the response was like, oh, well, then Hamas would like win or something like that. And he'd be like, you're emotionally blackmailing people. Like, you need to do better. Like, you need to have the facts and stuff in order. And so they said they didn't even talk about Israel that much, but they talked about a bunch of different topics. And he was just kind of, I guess sizing up the next generation of like influencers. And when I was reading different accounts of different people who were there talking about Charlie Kirk and what he was doing, I'm like, man, it is just really a shame that he was taken. And I saw other people talk about how Charlie was so different because he was so humble and he didn't have a big ego. There's a lot of people, they get in like these different spaces and they have to be the center of attention. They want to be the star, you know. They want to be the they want to be the token, this person, you know, or whatever. And they don't like to help anyone else up. But like Charlie was out there really trying to strengthen the coalition and other influencers out there. So the more I heard about what actually happened, I'm like, dang, man, it is so awful that he's gone and that he was taken. Because he was really trying to constantly grow the movement and strengthen the movement. But Candace Owens was like, you know, saying that Bill Ackman had like threatened Charlie, and there were threats to Charlie, and there was like some kind of payment of like $150,000. And then she's like, I never said $150,000, but there's a tweet from Candace asking about the $150,000 to Bill Ackman. But she you know, I never said that. But he didn't threaten Charlie. People in the room were like, that didn't happen. So everyone involved said that it didn't happen. And but people were spreading all these kind of rumors out. And she was, you know, saying stuff as if Charlie was turning on Israel or something like that. Charlie was frustrated about and hurt, I heard, genuinely hurt from people who would, if he's not defending hard enough, they would come after him and say he was anti-Semitic or whatever. He felt like he was owed more, I guess, good faith than that. That's probably not the right word, but you probably get what I'm trying to say. So he was also annoyed with people continuously pressuring him about Tucker Carlson because people didn't want Tucker Carlson to go to his stuff, and so people from Turning Point said, okay, well, Charlie was like, okay, if they're gonna come that hard, it makes me want to have Tucker more. And he believed that people should get up and be able to debate, and if we just cancel people, then it's just going to fuel, I guess, other folks who are on their side and whatnot. I if I were Charlie, I would be a little bit more I would gatekeep more than what he did. I don't like that they keep platforming Tucker Carlson. I think there's huge issues with Tucker Carlson, even beyond like the Israel stuff. I thought like some of his I don't know, raving with Russia stuff was weird. But even when he first started his podcast, I took an issue to like one of the very first episodes when he had that guy who claimed that he did cocaine with Obama and slept with him and stuff. And he tried to make him seem like credible. And he's like, he even took a lie detector test. And you might think, oh, well, gosh, that's interesting. He did take a lie detector test, but he didn't pass it. And I just thought it was weird for Tucker to throw that out there and not give that a bit of context. He must have known that he failed the lie detector test. So why not at least inform your audience about that? And then when they had the interview, he didn't push back on like his story at all. It was just supposed to hang out there. And I understand if you might not like Obama and you want the clicks and you want to embarrass him, but that's still, we still have to respect and honor the truth. And Tucker, he was on Fox, like he was a journalist. He's had that career for a while, and his I don't know, journalistic integrity and curiosity was just kind of thrown out of the window. So there's just something that I started to notice with Tucker. And by the way, I used to DVR his show on Fox. I was so excited to meet him in 2017 at the inauguration. I have a picture with him. I actually have two pictures with him because I saw actually Tucker shortly before that particular episode of his podcast aired. So I have one from a few years ago. I was big on, oh, Tucker's going to be on tonight. I'm not home. Let me DVR. And I would come home and I'd watch him do the Tucker face and ream on. He'd find liberals who were not very wise to argue a dumb point. And then he would ask some questions with the dumb Tucker face, like the baffled Tucker face. And it was good entertainment until it wasn't, just it got old after a while. But people have noted from Charlie's letter that he was concerned about different lies and smears or whatever that he'd have to face on college campuses and other places. And some people did question, like, okay, why are you platforming people who keep spreading the stuff that you find to be problematic? So, and if his thing is like, no, we need to all get together and debate this stuff, I guess it is what it is. But there are like, I just wouldn't platform. I'm not saying you have to like kick them off of YouTube or something like that, or kick them off of X or anything like that. But I just wouldn't have platformed if it was me. Like, again, people are like, oh, you just sipping for Charlie Kirk. I don't agree with Charlie Kirk on everything. I sure don't. And
he mentioned his last correspondences with Charlie, and you're doubling down on your lie. I told you to publish the full letter that Charlie wrote you, not lines of it. Okay. It's a lie by omission. Doing Fox News and Greta Van Sustern's show, he lied about the contents of a letter that Charlie Kirk had written him.
Remember on September 18th, I reported about a letter that Charlie Kirk wrote to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, what was exactly in it? Well, the New York Post got a hold of that letter and they've now published it. And it's exactly what I reported. Now, Charlie Kirk expressing his love for Israel, warning about the disinformation war, and really urging Israel to do better when it comes to social media and how to reach the younger people. No attacks on Israel, just advice on how to fight lies and reach the next generation. I'm not going to read the 7 pages, but it says, everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. Then he goes on to say, Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you, in caps, to revamp your information war strategy from top to bottom. It's exactly what I said, what was in the letter.
Can anybody actually work and assert that I am lying? You can say my name. Candace Owens lied.
So, by her definition of a lie, which is just omitting stuff, I don't know how much she actually knew, because she did admit that the part that he read was true, but just kept saying that he was lying by not talking about the rest of the 7-page letter. And again, I thought the words that he said were appropriate for that interview, and to go on and say, oh, by the way, Charlie Kirk thought that, we needed to do better on the information war. I guess that wouldn't have been a terrible thing to add in there, but it wasn't necessary, and certainly not lying by not putting it in there. But it would still be a positive spin, because he cared so much to give them all of this advice. And Charlie Kirk even said in his letters, I will help you with this. We will help with, you can have access to staff and other folks to find out how to better do your PR. Do you do that with people you don't like? And so the picture that they're painting, people have been trying to paint with Charlie and Israel changing his views, and it's not just something that people in Candace's circle were saying or whatever. There were Julian Michaels was on some kind of show with Anna Kasparian, and she's like, Charlie Kirk hated Bibi. He hated, and Julian just couldn't take the constant obsession with Israel and the conversation. She actually got up and just walked away from that conversation. So yeah, the letter was released. It is 7 pages. Let me see if I can, I'm not going to read it all to you guys. I did talk about a lot that's in it, but most of it is really just advice about how to win the information war, and warning them hey, there's a lot of young people who are turning who don't get it, who don't understand what you guys are doing, and you guys are unfavorable to a lot of young people, and we can't have that. That was the contents of the letter. So whatever Candace was trying to spin or put in people's heads, it just wasn't the reality of what was going on. But I'm glad that they released it, but I wasn't worried that Bibi was lying about the contents of the letter. Another tweet was the man literally booked himself on an American primetime show, which I'm pretty sure they probably maybe reached out to him, but whatever, held up a letter to represent it as a love letter to Israel. He did that intentionally. It was naked deception, propaganda. Let the world hear Charlie in his own words. Well, we did get to hear Charlie in his own words. And it was a love letter to Israel. Pretty much. And you don't always do just lovey-dovey stuff to people that you love. Sometimes you have to give criticism. Sometimes you have to do, and it's constructive criticism. It is really constructive criticism. It's not written with vitriol. There's some harsh criticism in the world that's not delivered constructively at all. And I try to be constructive. I can be rough sometimes, but that wasn't the vibe of this at all. This letter, I'm just pulling it up on my phone so I can read through some of it, because it looks a little small on my screen. So yeah, dear Mr. Prime Minister, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. Most recently, I am proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continuously support Israel and the Jewish people. As Muhammadism spreads into Western societies, it's critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain or roll back the radical Islam and Sharia law. I regret to report that an anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at record levels on social media. These negative sentiments then flow downstream into college campuses and even seep into the conservative MAGA community. So he loves Israel. He was just mostly warning him. He said, my team and I have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Anti-Israel sentiment can undermine American support for Israel. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communication intervention. So, he talks about how he started writing it on Easter. And how he goes on college campuses and the different things that he hears, like Israel's apartheid state. Are they, conducting an ethnic cleansing? Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people? Is America aid helping to subsidize Israel's free healthcare? Are the Jews running U.S. foreign policy, which Tucker Carlson was going around saying that Bibi Netanyahu is claiming that he controls Donald Trump. I was talking to my oldest sister about this today because I guess she didn't know how kind of deep Tucker was into a lot of this stuff. And I'm like, just think about that for a second. We're just like, nobody thinks that they can control Donald Trump. Like who would just say that? Oh, I'm controlling Donald Trump. No, nobody. I guess I won't say nobody. I don't want to say an absurd absolute or whatever, but Donald Trump is pretty uncontrollable. Though Candace Owens has said that he is controlled by the Zionists. That is what Candace has said, So take that for whatever it is and how she feels about Trump. And people ask him questions too about 9/11, which Candace Owens has spread 9/11 Jew conspiracy theories and stuff. So he outlines some of the things that he's heard on the college campuses, the civilian death toll, and he said, I strongly suggest Israel not always depend on subcontracting their information war efforts to surrogates in America. Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you to revamp your information warfare strategy from top to bottom. Sometimes the impression is given that Israel thinks everyone hates them, so why care about winning over hearts and minds? If there's any truth to this impression, I urge you to consider that social media and podcasts is where you fight for the hearts and minds of the younger generation. Obviously, all of the negative Israel propaganda on social media easily translates into pro-Hamas, free Palestine sentiment on many college campuses. And so then he gives some unsolicited recommendations. So he talks about getting a rapid response team, pro-Israel experts and fact checkers, having an Israel Truth Network to debunk the stuff, inviting some of the released hostages, doing man on the street videos with regular Israelis, and really explain the need of Israel going after Iran, and also like reassuring people. I guess we're not going to get into some kind of forever war, but because a lot of people, have all these thoughts about the 20-year wars and stuff that we've gone through, and they don't want to send their kids to go fight Iran or something. So like really explain this stuff. He took a lot of time to really flesh out his ideas on how they could help Israel. And I think this stuff is important too, because even like a lot of the conspiracy stuff that Candace Owens has pushed, because she'll just like regurgitate like neo-Nazi conspiracy stuff, and there'll be neo-Nazis or whoever in her comments, and they'll say theories, and she'll look up those theories and she'll make it mainstream. And I was also talking about this earlier today, and I'm like, there's a lot of things that I mean, I don't know all this research into all of this different stuff that she's bringing up, and so I have to look it up. And I said there's some people that I follow that like take the time to debunk a lot of this stuff, but it is time consuming. And then that particular person, one of the people that I follow, they decided to block her after she was, using Charlie Kirk for, I don't know, clout, clicks, content. I don't know, just the different things that she spread about Charlie after his death would just really rub people the wrong way. So he just decided to finally block her, because people will say all the time, like, why are you addressing all this stuff? Why don't you just ignore her? You're just giving more power. And he's like, no, these things need to be addressed. And if I didn't know an answer to something, like, hey, can you give me some background information on this, so I can push back against it. And I've made a couple videos about Candace and some stuff, mainly things that I've been able to observe in real time, but a lot of like the rabbit holes that they go down is just so deep. It's just so deep. Anyway, yeah, the letter was a lot of advice on how they can best defend their nation and prolong it. Because if the youth continues on with this anti-Israel sentiment, it's just not going to be good when those pro-Hamas people end up becoming Congress people. We got enough pro-Hamas people in Congress right now, I guess. It's just going to be an issue. It's really just going to be an issue. And beyond that, there's a lot of lies that have been going on. I don't understand how people can't understand like the ethics of warfare and I guess and why they need to win. And I would explain it this way: like, what if there was a monster living at the foot of your children's bed, and let's say they took a couple out, but they're promising that sometime, maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's a year or two or a couple years from now, but they plan to kill your children, and they've let you know that. Like, what would you do? You have some options. You could just leave, I guess. That doesn't always work out for everyone, Maybe you get a grudge situation, or was it movie Sinister when they left the house? That's when the monster could kill them. Or you can fight the monsters that are saying they're going to kill your children, because their goal is to wipe out the Jews. And then when they're done with them, they're going to come for the rest of the infidels, guys. So they did October the 7th. They butchered people at the music festival, butchered people in their homes, not armed people. They took babies, grandmas, parents, women, and just bragged about it. We're streaming it, posting it online, calling their dads all excited, saying I killed the Jews and stuff. Very proud of what they did. And then they took hostages, and they still don't have all their hostages back. So they want Hamas to disarm, and they want their hostages back, and they haven't achieved their military objectives. Why do you think they just be like, oh, well, we had a good time, let's just go home? Just because I guess they're better at warfare than their opponents who picked the fight doesn't mean that you just say, oh, we can't engage anymore. That doesn't make any sense. They still have their people. And all these people who are, every time you bring up any topic, some, like, you're talking about abortion, it's like, oh, what about the kids in Palestine? What about these people who keep bringing it up, which is interesting that Bill Maher brought up the other day, that people don't talk about the Christians being killed in Nigeria. I don't see these people bring up that Hamas should surrender and give back the hostages and end the war. I don't see them talking about how they use their own people as human shields. Like that's the point of the tunnels and operating in civilian areas, because they don't expect that Israel wants to commit a genocide. They expect them to be careful and invade on the ground and not just nuke them to pieces or something like that. They're using their humanity and their kindness against them. That's why they know that they can get a lopsided prisoner exchange for their terrorists versus a handful of their hostages, or even just sometimes their bodies. That's wild to me. But they're willing to do it, and they take advantage of their kindness. And Israel does so much to limit civilian casualties, and they have engaged in their modern, like, urban warfare in a way that is just so more, I don't know if I want to use the word humane, but it's just a lot nicer than the United States of America would have done. Way nicer than the United States of America would have done. But they need, I see some like Israel press people talking about it, but there's so many things that get spread in real time, and they should just be better at correcting this stuff. They should. So Charlie Kirk wrote his letter. There's nothing nefarious about the letter. There's nothing nefarious about Bibi talking about how Charlie said that, it was an honor for him to defend Israel. If you're doing a show on TBN about Israel, like, he had a love for the country. And I am suspicious of people, like he talked about, like, we need to maintain Western civilization, and that's being held together by Judeo-Christian values. And we see this opposition coming up against the West, which is Islam. So I don't appreciate some of these content creators who seem to want to turn Christians against the Jews and then, like, not have much to say about Islam. Candace Owens said something very weird some time ago in one of her rants, about how Jews have always killed Christians and blamed Muslims. Seems like a weird thing to say. So I'll go ahead and play that clip if you haven't seen it. Milk Bar TV has a lot of clips about Candace Owens, by the way, about the Andrew Tate stuff and just a lot of stuff.
I would literally rather saw off my own foot than support Israel ever again, by the way. Never supporting that demonic nation ever again. That's like, I'm so off that train. It's crazy. I've learned way too much. Like, you delivered in every way that you are supposed to deliver by just going full mask down. You often hear this word, like, inhumane, right? And they don't dehumanize. You dehumanized yourself. You proved that you have to not be a human to look at what is going on in Gaza and to try to spin it as a necessary response to October 7th. That takes somebody that is something other than human to keep doing that. And that's what you've done, and that's what you're being, and I will never be able to unsee that like the rest of the world. That's why I say it's incumbent upon us now. These are our kids that are growing up. You may have been able to do it with Robert Maxwell's textbooks, raise generation people to think like I did, like, oh my gosh, like, we have to make sure that a Holocaust never happens. We have to support Israel. Nope. Now we are reading the books. We're learning about how you've executed this. You've blindfolded the entire world to what you are. And what I think you might be is possessed by a real demon. I'm Catholic. I believe in demons. And Netanyahu is very clearly a demon. And any person that supports him, like, you are a part of a, like, totally demonic enterprise. And we're never going to be able to unsee that, okay? Oh, it didn't happen. No, Hamas is stealing. Hamas, ISIS, all of these people are just so conveniently, these terror groups are so convenient in helping Israel expand its borders. We know that now. We're aware of these operations that you're running and constantly blaming it on Muslims, radical Muslims, that you're funding always, right? We just always happen to be funding, Israel happens to be funding these groups. We're aware of what you're doing in Armenia. You're killing Christians. You've always been killing Christians. And you've always been pointing the finger at Muslims. So everyone's awake to that now. You got a little bit more than a PR problem, Bill Ackman. Okay? You have the PR solution, which is that you won. We know what you are. We see what you are. So what are you going to do now? Kill us all? That's kind of the broader question I think you guys are going to have to ask yourselves. Pass more speech laws in America, pull the Brigitte, start suing people, demand that they're fired. The last thing is like, well, we control the courts. So we're just going to make all of you guys suffer and we're just going to bankrupt you all. Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah. By the way, with the Bridget stuff, I'm assuming you guys know about that lawsuit where Candace even has she did this series about how Miss Macron, the French prime minister's wife, is actually a man. And she kept saying like, oh, well, I'm saying this stuff, people have these accusations, if someone was saying that stuff about me, I would provide evidence. Okay, well, they did provide evidence, but she just never accepted any of that evidence. And Candace will do this thing where she'll like call you out and have this conspiracy or whatever, and if you're silent about it, she uses that as evidence that she's on to something. But if you also respond, it makes it bigger, and she might also use that as evidence that she's on to something. So she I don't know, she kept like egging them on, like, oh, why wouldn't they respond this way? Why wouldn't they respond this way? Okay, well, now on top of like sending you evidence or whatever, they've decided to sue. And then she's like, oh, well, how can Trump allow this to happen to an American citizen? Oh, you're going to complain to Daddy Trump after you said he was controlled by the Zionists and brought up his daughter and a bunch of other stuff. Like, you defamed her. And then she's like, well, you can't defame someone because it's not, insulting to say that someone is trans. If you're going around lying and saying that a woman was actually a man, and that's not even all the other crazy stuff that she was saying, like in the midst of that series. So the question isn't like, is it good to be trans or whatever, but you're literally like saying that they're defrauding people, engaging in this master fraud of not actually being what she says that she is and who she says she is. So yeah, Candace, and she also mentioned the Bill Ackman thing again, which there was a rumor that they were pushing that Bill Ackman had threatened Charlie, that people were threatening Charlie about Israel stuff, and that didn't pan out. Everyone involved in that said that wasn't true. So Jews have always been killing Christians and blaming Muslims. That's the kind of rhetoric that she's pushing. And even like when she was talking to Andrew Tate when he decided to allegedly convert from Christianity to Islam, I'm like, this guy's not a Christian. He can like know of Christianity, but he's literally a pimp. And he's a pimp. Her glowing like interview with Andrew Tate and not representing the facts, or just letting him misrepresent the facts and not really pushing back and stuff, it was just really gross. But when they had the segment when they were talking about him converting, he's just like, oh, well, you go over in these Muslim countries and you can feel it because they're, I guess their culture or their religion or whatever. And he didn't like that, I guess, Christians were just letting themselves be disrespected and weren't defending the gospel or whatever, weren't defending Christianity. And Candace Owens could have obviously pushed back on him and said, well, what about the claims of Islam? Are they true or are they not true? Because they claim that Jesus didn't die on the cross and wasn't resurrected and didn't claim to be God, and we got it all wrong, etc. So those ideologies obviously conflict with each other. So if we know anything about Jesus, we know that he died on the cross. So there's like different theories about like how they kind of get around that. But like, do you really not believe that the resurrection and all that stuff you don't believe that's true? Because there's a conflict there. She doesn't have to know that much about Islam. She could just know a bit about the resurrection, and they could have debated that. And instead she's just like, oh, well, I'm sad. We're going to miss you, like on the Christian side. I'm like, I'm I want the pimp to repent and get right and crucify his flesh and be godly sorrowful and come into the kingdom, sure, but I don't think it's right for you to be like, oh, you were on our team. Was he on our team? Was he on our team when he was beating his bottom B word, who was a minor, on camera and using her to go recruit other girls to work for him? I just don't think he was on that team. Maybe he's on your team, Candace. I don't think he was on our team. Not my team. But she didn't really challenge that, push back at all. And I just, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't watch her stuff religiously, but I just haven't really seen her critique Islam very much. But she's got a lot to say about the Jews. Tucker is also like in that realm too, where he's talked a lot about Israel. He claimed that he didn't. Someone, I think it was Milk Bar TV, put together a counter of all the times he talked about Israel in like a short span of time, which is funny because after October 7th, he criticized Ben Shapiro about like being so obsessed with other stuff going on in another country. Excuse me. And he's like, well, basically he called him like unpatriotic. And he never like sat down and had a conversation with Ben and the criticism that he had for him. And then he went to Russia and and was engaged in politics in other countries and stuff, and he talks about Israel a lot. So what he said about Ben was just brain dead anyway, and also obviously hypocritical. But he said some interesting things about, I don't know, belittling Sharia law, and someone, Milk Bar TV, did a compilation of like his ideal, what he thought about it before and what he thinks about it now.
So a lot of Americans are concerned about Sharia law.
Sure.
And they're concerned about polls that show a strikingly large number of Muslims would like to see it supplant civil law in the countries in which they live.
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad.
I don't know of a single Gulf country where it's illegal to proselytize on behalf of another religion. I think that in every Muslim majority country in the world, non-Muslims are treated, have fewer rights.
And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this, with a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen.
So you often hear people say, well, Sharia is intolerant, women are treated badly, gays are treated badly. Women have, in the Quran, fewer rights than men do.
I'm not Muslim, I'm not for Sharia law. On the other hand, compared to what? Compared to Baltimore?
In England, it's 4 out of 10 British Muslims. In France, 29% of French Muslims would like to see it replace French law.
If people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Boy, I hope we don't wind up with that.
But I've seen a bunch of polls like this that show that the attitudes of faithful Muslims are not Western at all, and that they include a tolerance of violence you don't find among, say, Presbyterians or Jews.
Shut up. Sharia law.
Meanwhile, a California imam is apologizing after he referred to Jews as filth.
O Allah, liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews. O Allah, count them one by one and annihilate them down to the very last one. Do not spare any of them.
Sorry, Sharia law.
Yeah, so he expressed some. He didn't say that he was for Sharia law, but he was kind of mocking the idea of people being concerned about it and saying, well, as opposed to other stuff that's going on, is it really so bad? It's bad to have some ideology that's antithetical to Western values take root. Yes, I think that's bad, Tucker. I think it's bad. I think we got a lot of stuff we need to fix in our society. Sure, absolutely. But I don't know. It's like a sly way of like, he does a lot of talk that's like just undermines the country. He's very sly in what he does. Example, people were very mad about his speech that he gave at the memorial. And I think what he did was slick, and I kind of realized it at first, but when people started pushing back on it, I'm like, he probably expected you all to push back on it, and then all for you who were criticizing to look silly. So this is a portion of the speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial.
Ultimately, he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Everything is inverted.
So, by the way, I love when comedians do the Tucker laugh when they're making Tucker Carlson skits. So, Tucker Carlson did mock people who were mocking him because he mentioned the hummus line, and like, you clearly are talking about Jews killing Jesus. And he's like, this is an Arab thing, but there's video of him talking about hummus, clearly referring it to a Jewish thing. So there's that.
And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him?
And then you get this reaction, and I wasn't on Twitter, but I kept getting texts from people like, oh, they're so mad at you about the hummus or something. Hummus. Since when is hummus Jew? It's an Arab food. I mean, the whole thing is so bonkers.
And as someone who has zero interest in participating in any kind of boycott, much less against Israel, I'm just not interested. I'm happy, whatever, buy the hummus and use the software. I don't care.
And I can just
Hummus and useless software. So he at least seemed at one point to relate those things together. So I thought it was a bit of a trap, and I thought the people who were flipping out about it were going to make themselves seem like just the pro-Israel lobby who's attacking anybody who just they're just overly sensitive with some stuff, I guess, is the issue that a lot of people find annoying. So Tucker Carlson is telling this biblical story, and they're like, oh, they're saying that the Jews killed Jesus. And the point of everything is that Jesus was willing to lay down his life for us, to pay the debt of our sins, and he didn't have to do that. And he could have called a legion of angels to call it off or whatever. He said, no man takes my life, but I lay it down. You know, you can read the gospel for yourself. You can watch The King of Kings. I thought The King of Kings, did a great job. You know, my nieces really love that film. And even I think this, when they're in the garden, he said something about, like, I have to fulfill the prophecies or whatever. So when Jesus was on the cross and there was the one of the thieves who was mocking him, she's like, he had to fulfill the prophecy. So I'm like, yes, they're learning their understanding. But that's a really great movie if you haven't seen it. But I really love animation, so it was top tier to me. So the point is that Jesus was willing to lay down his life for us. And people could say it wasn't the Jews who killed Jesus, it was the Romans. Okay, well, why did the Romans want to do it? Jesus had enemies. They thought he was blaspheming. he was gaining too much power and popularity and was becoming, too big for them. And Jesus knew once he like raised up Lazarus, that's when they were really like, oh gosh, we got to kill this guy. And things escalated. Judas betrayed him, obviously, and he ended up before Pilate. And Pilate tried to give the folks an out. He's like, okay, well, we can release a prisoner, either Jesus or Barabbas, and the people chose Barabbas. And I think the ultimate point of the story is that we as a society killed Jesus. Obviously he had a lot of followers and people who stood by him in the first converts and stuff were Jewish people. And then went on to Gentiles and stuff. But people didn't like Jesus because he was speaking the truth. He was the truth. And if you put him in a different time, a different society and stuff, it could have been some other society or whatever. So I really don't like people who try to use the gospel to be anti-Semitic, especially when you look at Paul, who loved his Jewish brethren so much. He was saying like he would be willing to give up his salvation if it would like save them. I'm like, that's a love. I'm not sure if I have that prayer in me. Mine? I don't know. I'll pray for yours. But to read the Bible and to come to a conclusion that you should be hateful towards Jews, it's just not the intention at all. There's no Jew, there's no Greek, That's not how it's supposed to be, guys. So if you use the Bible to come at a Jewish person, that is not what you're supposed to do. But I do think that Tucker, maybe I shouldn't assume motivations, but it just kind of seems so on brand for the different stuff that he does that I think he's smarter than a lot of us critics. And it just kind of seemed like a trap, like maybe an inevitable trap that people were going to fall into by criticizing him. But at the same time, his retaliation to the criticism was just, don't they know the gospel? Like, this is like, oh, I can't believe people were so upset about this. This is just what happened in the Bible. And someone, Tucker, responded when he was asked about this, and that's what he basically said. So let me read some of the text messages. I can pull it up, but I'm not gonna be able to read it to you guys off the screen, so I'm gonna have to pull up my phone and read it. But he was asked about it, and he asked that these texts be made public when he talked about this stuff. So it's like, hey man, I'm hoping you might have a few minutes to talk about your speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial and some of the other stuff you said recently. I totally understand your concerns about Israel, even if I don't agree with all of them. But a lot of what you're saying feels anti-Semitic. There is no other way to say it. And I know I am not alone in feeling this way. Heck, forget the Jews think. Like, anti-Semites certainly think so. You were a great voice for the truth on COVID and mRNAs, and I appreciate you standing for free speech even now, but I wish I could understand what is motivating what feels like increasingly dark turn in your rhetoric. He's like, I'm sorry about all this. All I can say is that it wasn't my intention to say anything about Jews, and certainly not to imply they killed Charlie, which I don't think. I thought I was, I don't know how many people I saw saying that he believed that the Jews killed Charlie. As far as a speech, like, I think there were people who were like saying that with other content that he was putting out. I didn't see any content like that. I just want to be fair. I didn't see any content from Tucker that looked like he was pushing that Charlie was killed by Israel. He was like elevating like some of the other kind of narratives, but not that. Like Ian Carroll, for example, like flat out pushed that. But I could be wrong. But I just want to put it out there that I didn't see content from Tucker that suggested that he was killed by Israel. And I did not get that. I wouldn't have thought that from his speech. I just assumed it was a subtle dig, like the Jews killed Jesus like people, killed Charlie Kirk. That I wouldn't have I didn't connect those dots. Um I thought it was giving the most unifying, non-controversial speech ever. What I described is a central story of Christianity, and it's so familiar to Christians that it never occurred to me that anyone would be offended. I had no clue until people started sending me Twitter links from accounts that are mad at me about my position on Bibi and Iran. Every page of the New Testament was written by Jews, most of it by former Pharisee. So, from a Christian perspective, the claim that the gospel is anti-Semitic doesn't make any sense. I do think that on some level, Zionists and anti-Semites look at the world through the same lens. They both assume that everything is about Jews. I don't assume that. I just wanted to talk about Jesus, and I'm sad that it got obscured and turned into another battle in our propaganda wars. I've been involved in too many already. It also makes me sad that a lot of people know so little about Christianity that they come to conclusions like this. So there's a little dig there. I think people who are upset know about the story of Christianity. They just don't like. I've just seen a lot of people, especially like Nick Fuentes folks, like use that, throw that around, to also push, anti-Semitic sentiments. So, and I'm sure Tucker probably knows that. From what it's worth, Christianity teaches that Jesus was killed because of our sins, everyone's, and that would definitely include me. A lot of people online seem to think everything is about Jews, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the darkness we should be worried about. Hate and narcissism are twins. So for what it's worth, and he said, please feel free to post all this was the last thing. So he went ahead and posted the response. And there were some people who said, they were gonna take him at his word and not assume kind of the worst. I don't know. I kind of think the hummus comment was suspect, but but I knew it was a bad look for people to go after Tucker because it was just kind of a no-win situation, especially because so many people are hypersensitive, and maybe they have good reason to be, but you have to be more strategic in even how you push back sometimes, or how you criticize, or how you go after folks. You just got to be more strategic. So I'm like, they don't. Maybe they're right about Tucker and his intention and his secret intention or whatever, but you don't look good. As Charlie said, people have to fight a better information war than what they're doing. So I hope anyone watching this who's Jewish can take that to heart, I guess. So there was another thing that Tucker had said about not knowing if Hamas was actually like jihadist terrorists or whatever. I thought I had that clip pulled up, but there's a couple of things that seem to be kind of undermining this idea that like Israel is an ally, or there's a lot of criticism for them, but not like criticism like for Islam that's just taking a lot of root in the West, and it's not good. People assume that they're being paid by, foreign money and stuff. I don't know if that's the case. To me, it's I can't imagine, I guess, selling out like that, I guess. Like, especially since they like he and Candace already have so much money. But I don't know, if you really like money, you could really always take more. So I don't know. It's I don't know what all their motivations are, especially Candace. Maybe it's just pure narcissism and wanting attention, and maybe she has lost her mind. I don't know. To me, it seems a lot of the stuff that she says is calculated and intentional. And she got a lot of views after Charlie passed. And I know a lot of people had different questions about different things going on, but I don't know. The way there's obviously a better way to conduct yourself. But the flip out on BB, the spreading of the rumors about what happened in the Hamptons, attacking Bill Ackman, and then after everything got debunked, just saying like, "Oh, no one ever said anything about $150,000," when there's a tweet with her confronting Bill Ackman about $150,000 payments and all kinds of different stuff. So anyway, when people say like we're all on the same side, like why are you talking about Candace or going after Candace and stuff? My issue with the left is that there's a lot of things, obviously, like ideologically on a lot of things we don't agree, but they push a lot of oppressor stuff. They they have the victim mentality, and it's always someone else's fault. Like one of the things they like to blame on a lot of stuff is they talk about the system and systemic racism and white privilege and all that other kind of stuff. And Candace Owens also does something similar. And her the victims that she talks about a lot are Christians. And there are Christians who are persecuted, like the Christians in Nigeria, though a lot of people aren't talking enough about. But there's Christian persecution all over the world. I'm subscribed to Voice of Martyrs. There's a book called Tortured for Christ. It will make you cry, but if you haven't read it, I would look it up. From my understanding, when I got it, they giving out free copies. Maybe you guys, I'm assuming it's not that much if you can find one, if you have to pay for it, but it's worth reading to gain some perspective about what a lot of Christians have to go through around the world, especially in communist countries. How communism will root out Christianity. At first they'll come in, be like, oh, well, you can be a Christian, and you just got to kind of play, within the lines, within our rules. And if you want to preach like the real gospel, they're going to throw you in a gulag and torture you. So it'll make you cry, but it's worth reading. There's Christian persecution all over this world. But what I mean, like, the victims that Candace will use as far as Christianity, she complained about, she's like, did you know that Dresden was bombed on Ash Wednesday? Well, it wasn't just a one-day bombing, and they started before that Wednesday. But is there an insinuation that they did it because it was Ash Wednesday and they were out to? And she'll say, well, they don't want us to learn our history. Okay, well, this isn't like a particular Christian history. It's, it's the World War. I guess it involves like everybody, but they didn't purposely bomb Dresden because it was Ash Wednesday. Or she'll talk about the bombing of Nagasaki and be like, they bombed. Did you know that was happened right near a church? Are you implying that we bombed Japan to kill Catholics? Like, what? It's like they don't want us to know our history. There's always some kind of new secret history that nobody knows about but Candace uncovered it. She's like, they all lied to you. Here's this new thing that I'm bringing up that's been debunked before, but you're bringing it to the fringe thing to your wide audience, so not you get to act like you discovered it or whatever. So she'll make that group like the victims or whatever, and the person who's always behind everything, it's not systemic racism or whatever, it's the Jews. The Jews are controlling the president. The Jews are behind pornography. The Jews this, the Jews that. And it's not just criticism of Israel. She spreads conspiracy theories. She spreads blood libels. I've talked about some of this stuff before. I have a few videos on Candace, even when after October 7th, she had on Ami Kozak to talk about the war and stuff. Well, it wasn't even with the war. It was before that. It was a response to October 7th. And it was before they engaged in war, because it was before the end of the year. And so when Ami was talking about how Israel is an ally, and so they have Western values that are similar to ours. And so she brought up the fact, she tried to bring up like, okay, well, if Israel, is such a beacon of freedom, then why do they have the Muslim quarters? If you haven't seen this clip, it's really something. And so she pushes back a bit on Ami, and he's just like, no, it's because she thought it was like segregation, like Jim Crow or South or whatever. And he's like, no, that's just where they live, like Chinatown and other areas or whatever. He's like, that's not where they have to live. That's just where they live. And so people were ruthlessly mocking Candace Owens about that. And then she tried to say like, oh, they have the Jewish lobby. They're attacking. The Israel lobby was attacking me for just asking questions. It's like, no, you made an accusation in ignorance and then like tried to insist upon it. And then he made you look really stupid. And she's like, this is why everyone is turning on Israel, because how they treated me. Well, you were stupid, Candace. And then Ami, he talked about how Hamas doesn't share our values and stuff too. And you don't want history to repeat itself or whatever. And no. He didn't say history repeats itself. He just said, Hamas, they don't stand for freedom and other kind of things like that. And so she was like, well, Jews live very comfortably in the United States of America. I'm like paraphrasing it, but I have a video about Candace Owens and her beef with Ben Shapiro. It has all these clips in it, just FYI. And Ami kind of made a face, and he's like, the Jews were very comfortable before, World War II. And she's just like, come on. Like, I just can't take it seriously when people invoke things like the Holocaust or slavery or something, and just dismissed them. And I just thought that that was like probably the worst part of that interview for me, as far as how she came off and looked. And in hindsight, from that time, we have had, people, there's a guy who lit protesters who was just calling attention to the people who were still kidnapped in Gaza, how they got lit on fire. People have, attacked Jewish protesters with bullhorns. There was the couple who was murdered. There's all these students have been harassed on college campuses and saying, oh, well, they live very comfortably in the United States. Yeah, until they don't. Until they don't. And to dismiss the threat of Hamas, who does want to just not only kill the Jews, but the rest of the infidels, once if they didn't have Israel to play around with or whatever, and you think they would just kind of sit back and be like, oh, well, all those Christians over there living in the great Satan, like they were just gonna leave us be? I don't think so. But instead of really kind of addressing this ideology, or wouldn't it be great if Candace Owens just got, back on her rocker and then just, became like a biblical scholar and started studying a lot about Islam and just debunking a lot of that stuff? Like, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? But no, that's not the route that she goes. The route that she goes is spreading conspiracies about Jewish people on 9/11 and their involvement. That's where she's been for a minute. So I think this sort of mentality is really destructive. And you could say, yeah, we agree on some things. It's not hard to say that a man can't become a woman. Like, even though the left makes it seem like it's so hard to say that's like a no-brainer issue. Like, there's obviously some things that we're going to agree on, but I think what she's been doing for a long while has been pretty destructive. And I think that's the case of Tucker too. The way that he attacked Ben was just so uncalled for, and then never would sit down and have a discussion with him. But it's interesting the sort of people that he will sit down with. And it's interesting the sort of people that Candace would sit down with. After she had her interview with Ami, she invited Norman Finkelstein, who said that October the 7th warmed his heart. And she didn't really push back on him. Not the way that she was pushing back on Ami. I'm not saying she had like a disrespectful dialogue with Ami, but someone who was happy, it warmed his heart. October the 7th? That's the person that you bring on your show before you go on pregnancy leave? And just kind of give him the floor to speak. especially when you're outside of your depth on the topic. I don't doubt that she cares, and a lot of people care about what's going on in the civilian lives that have lost or that are lost. But if you can't understand what war is a terrible, terrible thing, but sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes it is necessary. And Israel does have an obligation to the future of their people. And the people living in Gaza, the civilians, like, where's their obligation to speak up against this oppressive regime, an evil regime? And by the way, there are people who have spoken up about it, but those people are usually killed. And all these free Palestine people, they don't seem to care too much about those folks. They don't chant their names and draw attention to that. Anyway, I'm not happy about the state of affairs with things. People were on Megyn Kelly today, and this will probably be the last thing I say because I'm way over on my time, or at least how long I intended to talk today. But people have been coming for her association with Tucker, and people said something about Candace too. I'm not aware of her, like, what comments she may have made regarding Candace and stuff. It doesn't seem like they've engaged in a minute, but this guy said, if you can't separate yourself from Candace Owens, many of us are going to separate ourselves from you. We do not have to align with everyone that claims to be of the right when their motives of history are shady as hers. And she said, look at this. No, I have no obligation to separate myself from anyone, which, by the way, Charlie was asked about, I think it was Candace or whatever. And he was just gracious and talked about how she was a good friend, or they were good friends and stuff. And his pastor talked about how Charlie wouldn't say anything like bad about her and how he was a really good friend. And he asked Candace to be a good friend to Charlie Kirk. And then she like turned around and kind of attacked the pastor. But Charlie was obviously a good friend to her. And though they very much disagreed on these issues or whatever, he did not go out and attack her. He said people who blame everything on the Jews have brain rot, but he did not go out of his way to attack Candace. And he told people, basically, don't like make me pick sides and say that you have to separate from this friend or that friend. So Megyn is basically saying the same thing. Like, don't say I have to separate from these folks. Anyway, that show is where I express my own opinions, and I will decide what not to opine on. If you need me, what not to opine on. If you need me to condemn Candace or Tucker for their opinions in order to listen to me, then I may not be for you. He's a close friend, and she is under enough pressure without gratuitous shots for me. My fight is with the left, not these two. Now that seems kind of odd to me because you're a podcaster, you're a commentator. So there's another podcaster or commentator saying stuff that isn't true or whatever. And it just seems kind of odd, I guess, that you would be, your response is, well, she doesn't need me to pile on. Because I guess what I'm saying is that's what people on the internet do all day for their profession. So that's, I don't know. That's kind of weird. But she said my fight is with the left, not these two. And I think that's an issue. Now, Konstantin Kisin replied and said the problem with this approach, which many on the right are taking, is that this is exactly how the left allowed its own extremists to first flourish and then to become the face of the entire movement. If you agree with Candace and Tucker, people will respect that. But to many of us, this behavior is so extreme and so deranged that the idea that it can be simply ignored because your fight is with the left doesn't wash. You have always been a great, principled, truth-seeking journalist. So to many of your admirers like me, the question might be, if you agree with them, fine, but if you don't, why isn't your fight with them? So you can have debates or whatever about issues and public debates, but this is so weird to me about the Candace thing, because she came at Candace very hard when Candace was coming at Bill Ackman for trying to cancel those Harvard kids who wrote like in support of like they condemned Israel for October 7th. And so then you had all these people who were going to like blacklist all these like people from Harvard, and Candace is like, that's not right. I said dumb things as a kid. I'm for free speech, etc., etc. And her and Megyn Kelly had a back and forth, which I do also cover in that video about Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. I do cover those messages. So this is a little weird to me. It's a little weird to me. As a journalist, though, she is a friend of Tucker Carlson, but as a professional, I would be concerned about Tucker's lack of journalistic integrity and how he's selectively curious. He's a very curious person, but he doesn't push back on crazy things that are said on his platform, and he uplifts them and says a couple crazy, disingenuous things himself. So I can understand not wanting to be forced to disavow someone that you've known for a very long time who's your friend. But I think they hurt the movement. I think they hurt the movement, and certain things that they say are to undermine the country and undermine the West. Like Candace pushing the idea that it was a mistake to get involved in World War II and we're not better off. I'm like, what do you mean we're not better off? Which, Tucker platform, someone who said that Winston Churchill was like the chief villain, which he has other like content that was very suspect and stuff too. So even like Tucker Carlson switch up on Douglas Murray, when he first started, like before he started his Tucker thing on X, he was on Fox, and they like branched off, and he had like another kind of show, and he interviewed Douglas Murray and talked like Douglas Murray was like one of the most important voices that there was. So then he just like, after the Dave Smith debate and Douglas Murray defending Israel, and Dave Smith, saying all the stuff that he says about Israel, Tucker Carlson apparently didn't have glowing things to say about Douglas Murray and was acting like, who the heck is any kind of anyway? It's like, I thought you thought he was very important before, until you started switching tunes. So I just think a lot of people are really disingenuous with their opinions, and there's some sinister things going on underneath the surface, and I don't know to what end and what purpose. What is the motivation of doing some of the subtle things that they're doing, and some of them not so subtle, but I'm concerned about it. So anyway, I've talked enough about this, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. I haven't been able to read a ton of your comments because, again, your comments were kind of far from where I was looking. Someone said, didn't she make a bet with Piers Morgan's and increase it to 300,000 about Bridget? She did make a bet with Piers Morgan about that. And she made this bet. They should just go to court, and they should go have their trial or whatever, and she should pay up, because it's not like she obviously was profiting off of this lie that she spread. She didn't make it up, by the way, but she decided to just make huge. She did a series on it. And so there's all the like the whatever revenue, I guess, generated from that. But she also sells shirts about Bridget. So, or Brigitte. So that's a problem, and it's not gonna look good for her. And the law firm that's representing the Macrons are the law firm that was representing Dominion when they got that almost like $1 billion settlement from Fox News. So she's in trouble. Someone said if they had anything to do with Charlie's demise, then why hasn't Tucker or Carl been killed too? Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. There's stuff I think to imply that Candace was implying that it was someone else or covered up or whatever. Again, I haven't seen anything from Tucker to imply that he thought that Israel killed him or whatever. I could be wrong. I just haven't seen it. So I'm gonna say that there was. But Candace has been floating all kinds of conspiracies that have just been really strange. And they're like, oh, why don't what they release this video and this stuff, and why is Turning Point doing this? I know podcasters like to talk, but in the real world, there's doing an investigation. There's going to be a trial, and a lot of this information is going to come out during the trial. And we know who did it. Maybe a lot of people don't believe that he did it. I don't know why his parents would turn him in, knowing that he's probably going to get the death penalty, but we know who did it with a high degree of confidence. And I don't like all of this distraction stuff, because we're not talking about like the transgender leftist ideology that got him killed. All these people saying he's hateful, he's hateful, he's hateful. And people are continuing to say that and to slander him to justify what happened, like, or justify what happened to him, or diminish him. Like, why are you people mourning? Like, he's awful, you must be awful too because you're mourning him. So we have, how many people have had like a serious conversation about transgender violence since I don't know, that we found out that information. I mention it every so often, but so many people are focused on these other conspiracies as if there's the wrong person. It's like, I pretty much could have guessed that it was something along those lines, and we were right. And we need to discuss the negativity, the negative impact of this ideology on our culture and on our society, and all this character assassination from the left that has led all these crazy people to actually assassinate people. Like, that needs to be the conversation. Like Megan said, we need to focus on what the left is doing. Okay, but these people are distracting. And we could at least debunk this stuff. And they don't need to be kicked off of X or all these other platforms necessarily or whatever. But I don't understand. There was a criticism that I saw someone say about Charlie Kirk's letter after they read it, and they're like, okay, if he's concerned about all this stuff, why have Tucker speak? And he doesn't actually have to shut him down, but you don't have to let people speak at your venue, at your thing. So I find that a little baffling too. And I don't understand the connection, the pull that Tucker still has, like with the White House, knowing like different things he texted about Trump and stuff, but they still got back on friendly terms or whatever. And some of the stuff that he's pushing and implying, and just spreading like, Bibi Netanyahu just thinks he owns Trump, and stuff that he was saying about Iran, dead wrong about Iran, and some of his like takes and foreign policy, and he ought to know better or whatever, but it was just pushing a lot of crazy stuff. To me, Tucker obviously I would think would be a thorn in the side for the White House. But his son apparently works for JD Vance. So I don't know if all that, his connections or pull or whatever, is coming from Vance. Trump, people could just say some nice things about him and he's cool for a little while. I don't understand. I think at this point, Tucker should be more fringe. I don't understand everyone's motivation, but I think we at least got to address some of these things going on, and some of these things that they're saying, and we should not just be silent. Like a lot of blue collar Democrats that seem pretty normal, maybe moderate, maybe even conservative, not conservative, but kind of Republican in today's standards, whatever, because they're being pushed out of their party with no place to go because they allowed the crazies to overrun their party. I don't want to see that on the right. I think if conservatism, like Charlie was really, really big on expanding the tent and coalition building and all that stuff, and he was great at it. But I do think there is a conserving part of conservatism, and it does require some gatekeeping on something. So anyway, that's my show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the site because it does cost to stream, run my site, all the good stuff. You guys can support it. Very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can get different t-shirts and stuff on the website along with different mugs. I do also have different books. If you go to blacktnews.com, there's a link on the merchandise page. There's a banner that'll take you to my book website where you can like see my books and stuff. But as I mentioned earlier, my book Bigger, you guys can pre-order that. And I'll add my other books and stuff later as well. So on the site, there's a couple like Super Kid is up there. I think maybe it's just kind of Super Kid and the bigger stuff, but I'll add some other stuff when I get that opportunity. But I'm like running my book stuff and the black tea, and it's just kind of all me. So it's a lot. But anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you on tomorrow.